75 just here through the right-hander, building up to 90 mile an hour, and then back through the last corner again and across the start-finish line to complete another lap. Michael Andretti then in 4th position at the moment, and Mark Blundell still our race leader.
Yeah, a note here, one of the cars sounded fairly rough as it came past it last time. I think it was Gualter Salles. More engine problems there for the young Brazilian. Been running in 15th place. He closed up right onto the tail of Alonso Jr. after their stops. It actually switched positions during their pit stops. And there is Gil de Ferran. He's had problems already today, and it seems now even more problems for the other Brazilian driver. So not too good for Brazilians just at the moment, it seems.
No, well, we've got news that it really is a bad brake problem. The brake's going right down to the floor, and he's shouting no brakes on the radio to his team at the moment. So it really does look bad news for Gil de Ferran. Let's hope, well, he's just not really going to feature in this race any longer. Mark Blundell leads here, and we're just over half distance. He's driving a superb race so far. Zanardi still in 2nd. Mark Blundell still leads the race here in Toronto, having completed 48 laps now out of the 95. Alex Zanardi in 2nd place, Andre Ribeiro in a fighting 3rd position, looking very good. Michael Andretti in 4th, and Michael's just been told to turn up the boost a little bit, to richen up the mixture a bit, use a bit more fuel. His mileage is looking very good indeed, and over the radio the team have told him to, okay, get on with the program a little bit. And indeed Scott Pruitt behind him has been told that he's not doing so well on the fuel. He's been told to back off a little bit. Pruitt already down in 5th place, so watch out for Michael Andretti in 4th at the moment. We now might expect to see him starting to close the gap between himself and Andre Ribeiro. 5th then Scott Pruitt, 6th is Bobby Ray Hull, 7th place for Raul Boesel, 8th for Greg Moore, and 9th position for Maurizio Gugelmin, 10th place for championship leader Paul Tracy. Mark Blundell has led every lap of this race so far. He's now trying to get past Michel Jourdain Jr. Goes through quite safely on the inside. There was a bit of a gesticulation as he went past. I don't know if he was a little upset.
No, I think that was just a wave of acknowledgement, getting out of the way. He'd been closing up on a couple of laps, and clearly that was a nice easy place to let him past, and did so quite cleanly. So I think just a wave of acknowledgement from Mark Blundell to the young Mexican driver. There is Michael Andretti trying to get past Hiro Matsushita on that fast sweeping corner. Yeah, that's not a wave of thanks. That's quite the opposite.
It is indeed, and Matsushita doing it again. But don't forget that Matsushita actually is a major owner of the Swift company. They build this car that Michael Andretti's driving. I always think that's slightly ironic. There's Hiro out there holding up the guy who's driving his car. Hiro Matsushita doesn't actually drive a Swift himself. He drives a Reynard at the moment. All slightly strange. But anyway, Michael's got past. Matsushita's come into the pits, and Andretti can continue his chase of Andre Ribeiro, which is down to about 2.3 seconds, the gap between them now. Things have settled a little bit up front. There goes Zanardi in 2nd position. Mark Blundell at the bottom of your picture. Top of the picture, Andre Ribeiro. In the background, the black car of Michael Andretti. And once again, Andre Ribeiro impressing us considerably here in the commentary box. Remember how little running he's had in this Reynard chassis over the course of this season. Just a couple of races. This is the 2nd race only of this Reynard that he's been running. And Andre Ribeiro, 31 years old, who took a few wins, won a couple of races last year in the Tasman Lola, as it was last year, with the Honda Power Firestone tyres. Pretty much the same package this year they started out with until the switch to the Reynard. And he won both the Rio 400 and the Michigan race, and in fact took pole position here in Toronto, but it was his teammate Adrian Fernandez who took the victory here last year.
Yes, indeed, and the Tasman Motorsports, as we talked about a little bit earlier on, tremendous success already this weekend, and a great first pit stop by Andre Ribeiro, Steve Reagan leading that crew, and they were able to make up a couple of positions in the pit stop, and now Alex Zanardi is feeling the pressure a little bit. There he goes inside Michel Jourdain Jr. He's actually managed to pull away a little bit from Andre Ribeiro, but he certainly knows Ribeiro's there, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. All 3 cars at the front of the field, of course, on Firestone tyres. Michael Andretti in 4th is the first of the drivers on Goodyears, then Scott Pruitt in 5th on Firestones, Bobby Rahal Goodyears, and then Firestone, Boesel, Moore and Gugelmin. So pretty interesting, I'd say there. Firestone's looking to have the slight advantage here, as indeed they had last year. Distinct advantage last year. I think Goodyears cut back the deficit this year a little bit, but still Firestone has a better tyre, it seems, at this stage in a race.
Great pictures from on board with Ribeiro. Just enjoy the ride for the moment. Slips past Michel Jourdain down at turn 1. Now he can really accelerate again up through the gears and onto the Lakeshore Boulevard straight. We just had more reports of Scott Pruitt still, his team telling him that he's in trouble on fuel mileage, that he's got to lean off the mixture a little bit, so that's not good news for the man running in 5th position so far. There's Michael Andretti, and you can see that he's definitely closing in a little bit on Ribeiro, but he's now got to find a way past Michel Jourdain safely. Jourdain doing a good job, also another man to have switched from Lola to Reynard in recent races, and he's running quite competitively. He's in 15th place, very young man from Mexico, and putting in a good performance so far this year. But Andretti now wants to try and find a way past him quickly. Doesn't want to lose any more time than he has to Andre Ribeiro up ahead there. Let's see whether Andretti can build up the speed sufficiently through these last couple of corners. Jourdain actually pretty fast through there, has to be said. Andretti wasn't quick enough, and that meant that he wasn't able to close up. Got to be quick through this section now to have more of a chance on the main straight. This time he goes through safely. On the brakes, Jourdain braked a little early, if anything. And Michael Andretti takes that, the back marker, goes through safely, but now he's got to focus on chasing after Andre Ribeiro a little further ahead.
There is Michael Andretti through the turn 6 there, back to the race leaders.
What's happened here?
Alex Zanardi right on the tail of Mark Blundell. I'm not quite sure whether he got held up. There is Ribeiro behind him, and one of the Eagle Toyotas behind that. Certainly in the last couple of laps, Zanardi is up the pace. 61.003 last time around. The last 2 laps or so, he's really got to move on and able to pull up a little bit. Here they are at the end of the main straight. Mark Blundell gets it sideways under the braking and goes straight on, doesn't he? Whoa!
That's where he lost the time. That's how Zanardi managed to catch up. The replay of Mark Blundell very nearly losing it going into turn number 3, but he managed to save it. Good driving from Blundell, didn't throw it away, but now that's put him under pressure from Zanardi. Zanardi, look at this, looking at the inside there, hounding the back of Blundell's car. Now we've really got a race on our hands. We are on lap number 55 out of 95. We've still got about 10 to 15 laps, I would imagine, before the second round of pit stops, and Mark Blundell, from having a fairly comfortable lead and pulling away up front, has now got to do it all over again. And just look at the amount of rubber that's now been thrown off the racing line. That's going to make life difficult for anybody trying to pass, but we've already seen Zanardi passing a great many cars in this race.
Yes, we have indeed, and he hasn't put a foot wrong either. The first chink perhaps of a mistake there from Mark Blundell, and you're going to bet your life that Alex Zanardi is going to try and get through turn 1 and 2 cleanly on this time around. Maybe he can put some more pressure on Mark Blundell as they go down the back straightaway, but
so that's a shame for De Ferran, out of the race, and after a recent run of successful finishes on the podium the last 3 races, it's not to be this time for the Brazilian, but he's still going to be up there in the championship as we move to Michigan next weekend. Mark Blundell crosses the line now. Look, see how he's managed to pull away again from Zanardi a bit, but Ribeiro has caught up a bit, hasn't he?
Yeah, but Mark Blundell has just turned his fastest 2 laps of the race, 60.6 and 60.7 the last 2 laps. Here's a replay, I think, of Mark Blundell getting it sideways under braking there at turn 3, but he kept his cool, kept it under control, kept it off the tyres, and was able to get the pickup off the tyres there and keep Alex Zanardi behind him at the same time. And since then he's really put his head down. 2 very quick laps from Mark Blundell, established a slight lead again.
Yeah, so he seems to have the car with the pace, and of course the concentration. That's what's got to be kept together here on this track. It's so demanding, and it only takes that slight slip, as we saw there, only a fraction later on the brakes, and of course the tyres beginning to get a little more worn as they go through this second stint, and that means the braking performance not quite as good as it could have been. They actually found something on the car after qualifying yesterday, Jeremy, that wasn't quite right, so that gave them some hope today anyway. It was actually something to do with the stability of the car under braking. They found there was a little bit of air in the hydraulic damper system that looks after the stability of the car under braking. So they were pretty confident coming into today because they knew they could make the car even better than it was yesterday. And he's proving that out there now, isn't he? He's pulled away just a fraction more from Alex Zanardi, but there's no doubt that Zanardi is going to keep him honest all the way through to the end of this race.
Last lap around, Alex Zanardi responding over the 60.4. He clipped a half a second away from Mark Blundell's lead, so it's really cat and mouse at this stage in the game. 57 laps in the books, and maybe another 12 or 13 or so before their final pit stops, and then it's flat out to the finish from there.
Great stuff, and Blundell from Zanardi, Ribeiro and Andretti, those four cars are all very close together, and the winner could really come from any of those. And remember, with the second round of pit stops to come, the pressure is going to be on the teams to get them out cleanly. Here they come past our commentary position again, Mark Blundell and Zanardi, and again, yes, the gap is slightly closer than it had been. Ribeiro goes through, Andretti goes through, and these four guys all pushing very hard indeed at the moment.
Yeah, I think Alex Zanardi wants to get as close to Mark Blundell as he can before these pit stops. He has immense confidence in his pit crew. Rob Hill is the crew chief on car number 4. They've pulled in some phenomenal pit stops over the season so far. There's a look at the fuel windows, maybe another 8 or 10 laps to go before they enter the fuel window, which will enable them to make it to the finish on one more pit stop. And Alex Zanardi trying to put the pressure on Mark Blundell's Pac West crew, and it's Butch Winkle who is the crew chief on Mark Blundell's crew, and it's going to be between Butch Winkle and Rob Hill that's going to decide this race. There's two names you probably haven't heard before, but they're part and parcel of IndyCar racing, and it's them that could well make the ultimate decisions in this race. We'll see.
Yes, remember Alex